Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Inside Thrustmaster Esports. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, a three-time Poject Cars 2 world champion. He is a Ferrari Esports driver and also one of the world's fastest gamer finalists. Coming out of Poland, he is one of the nicest people I've ever met in sim racing, and I'm sure today we're going to find out loads of exciting information about him. It is, of course, the wonderful Kamil PAWLOWSKI. Kamil, how are you doing?
Hey everyone! Thank you, Josh, for very kind words of introductions. My heart is melting right now, especially when you said that I'm one of the nicest persons in in the racing world. It's great to see you, and I'm looking forward for a chat.
Awesome. So, Kamil, I want to do things a little bit differently because, as I'm sure you've experienced with many interviews that you've done, we always like to start by talking about, your favorite game and all this kind of stuff. But I want to take things back a little bit earlier. So, for anyone who's watching, who's maybe looking to get into sim racing, tell me about your journey. Like, where did you first start racing? What was your first game? What do we need to know about younger Kamil that helps us inform who you are today?
Okay, to be honest, I'm 25 years old, and I would definitely say that my sim racing journey, as funny as it sounds, started like 20 years ago when I was 5 years old. Yeah, from the very beginning of playing any games, like when I was 5 or 6, I started enjoying and playing racing games, especially Gran Turismo 2. So it was something that really worked in my mind and started as a really very early hobby that I started to understand how to do it right, how to take corners correctly, even how to mess in car setup in some very basic things when I was 7 or 8 years old. So I remember doing like all the license for a gold times in Gran Turismo when I was so young. It was something that I observed that I want to push. I want to understand more to be more and more better. Later, then the passion for racing games never really faded. So I'm happy that it went this way. That I was always into them. So when I was about 13, I bought my first steering wheel to enjoy racing more professionally and get into the sim racing world, because it was getting, let's say, popular, not any kind of popular where it is right now, but there was some wheels on the market, some games that you could play. So why don't we try it? Why don't I try it? And wow, that was a great decision that I made to save money, save the pocket money and buy something proper to race. I remember signing in a professional leagues in their factory in Poland, doing some license stuff in online to have the opportunity. And yes, this, as I said, this was a right choice, right direction of hobby to follow, because years later I was doing it like I was into it, and I wanted to push. I wanted to race online with people in Gran Turismo, in Air Factor. But then was a release of Poject Cars, and this was the game that I jumped in from the very, very start on the market. So a new game, new players, new drivers, great opportunity to me to really compare from a fresh start to people. And yeah, basically anytime trial I was really on top. So I observed that it's not only for fun, it not can only be like just to enjoy, but also to like properly compete with people in some esports tournaments, because first tournaments with some money started very early in Poject Cars by ESL.
Nice.
So I signed in them. I really after school, after school in the evenings, I really pushed to prepare every weekend for a little Sunday Cups. And yeah, some first wins, some first money, some first, motivation to push even further, even more. And then it all went really, really well. First World Championship in Poject Cars, win. Other defending the title later in Poject Cars 2. then yeah, this was basically sorry.
It's okay. Okay. So
I'm sorry.
I mean,
Sorry.
well, look, we'll dive into your competitive results later on because there's so
Yeah, yeah,
much to go for and it's so exciting.
sure.
But I have to ask, I remember one of the first games I played was called Lego Racers, and you literally, you built a car of Lego and you raced it in the game. Did you always play games competitively, or was there always an element of fun as well in your racing?
No, there was right now I would say it's like a professional approach and it's very esport approach, but also doing it for fun. But back then it was 80% for fun, just for fun, just to enjoy, just to have fun of driving a car in a sim, not looking really into the future of that you can develop a career from it. Because back then, even when I started at Project Cars, even doing a world championship, it was still felt like one-time experience, not something that you can really see into the future as a potential career to follow. So
No, definitely that makes sense. And obviously, now obviously I said at the start of the intro, you've got a huge range of results from Project Cars to obviously world's fastest gamer. But how or when did you decide that actually this wasn't going to be just something for fun, but actually something you wanted to take competitively? And for anyone who's watching, what was that mentality like? What was that shift like? What was the deciding factor for you?
it's a good question because the answer is not very clear. It's very there's no a very clear boundary between I'm doing it for fun and now I'm switching to do it professionally. There's not a one-time switch, one-time mentality change. It was all very fluid in terms of what's happening, what am I achieving, what kind of future is awaiting, what is potential and where. It was all fluidly changing from the possibilities and opportunities that I was taking and were appearing across the years of career. So, but to be honest, to take it very professionally is to have the mentality to treat it as a full-time career as long as I am very competitive and when I still enjoy it and have a full motivation. It really appeared fully in my mind pretty recently, like
No.
1 year ago when I joined Ferrari, and now even have still the same motivation to treat it as a full-time career. But back then was always feeling it's super fun. I am having some money from it, and it's I want to push, but not really. It's not something that I would treat as a very future-proof career. But now it's with the race of sim racing, in terms of popularity, visibility, sponsors, brands, and competition and prize pools, it becomes more real to treat it as a proper full-time career.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we've seen obviously over the pandemic and even now with the announcement of the ESL Ren Sports Series, so many more opportunities for people to kind of take this as a full-time career. So I think that moves nicely. I want to talk to you about training. I had a look back through the notes and I realized the 2018 Project Cars SMSR Championship was actually the first time that you and I met. I was involved with running the championship, and then you were, of course, competing. And just to give people some insight, that competition started with a series of hot lap competitions. Then it was a series of online rounds and the finale. So quite a wide range of different race types. And, quite often people, when they get in the sim rig, they just want to go on and race in online lobbies and have fun. But Kamil, can you talk to me a bit about your training routine? What do you do to train? And what does that how would you explain it for someone who wants to get into sim racing competitively?
All right. Yeah, sure. I look forward to describe it. So it changed from year to year now. Let's go back to when I was even preparing for World Championship in Project Cars 1, so 2017 or 2018 was not really very well scheduled in my mind how I approach the trainings. So it's funny to see that it was back then possible to achieve big results without a very professional approach for a training, because I was racing when I had the free time, when I had the free mind and some motivation to do it like right now. So it was not like a very planned day of a training. Just when I wanted, and when I had time to, so I spent as much as possible, of course, but respecting all the other things in my life, private life and school. Well, there was not so much time to train back then, but looking now to treating as a professional career, you have to plan your day to really have at least 2 or 3 hours of proper sim training, at least I say, to really be in the game and be competitive, because the simulators are really changing every patch. Balance of performance of cars are changing. You have to be, you have to understand many cars, all the tracks, and all the changes in the game to not fall apart with the competition of other drivers. So yeah, if you back then, when you start your sim racing and want to be competitive, just an advice for everyone, every sim racer enjoyer that do it in the free time. Still, you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it, and inside you need to want to just try things, to be better, to observe faster drivers, learn from them, learn from the videos, from the track guides, from the hot laps, just to see where you can improve on one proper track. So it's good advice to focus on maybe on one thing, to try to get closer to fast sim racers, like professional ones, to understand at least fully one track or one car, to get these little tenths of your hot lap there. And then when you understand fully one track or one car, then you can approach more and more and more. But most of it at the start is to really want to enjoy it and want to improve internally. Then if you will see your lap times being great when you sign up for the competitions, when you get your first good results in online, then you will see as a driver that it's very natural, the progression you will have. But the route at the start is to really enjoy it and want to spend it in the free time, and then with the first great results and things, it will just flow, I would say.
Definitely, no, that makes a lot of sense. I want to look a bit closer. So the 2021 Ferrari Esports Series, obviously a very good season for you. And I had the pleasure of kind of also competing and learning from you whilst we were, in this championship. But obviously that was a series which had a lot of very strong talent. It was a very competitive, particularly at the front, you guys were constantly battling. So when you're practicing for a championship like that, how does your training routine look? Because presumably you don't just jump in the car and turn laps. Obviously you're working on setup or strategy and all this stuff. But can you kind of walk me through back then what your training routine looked like?
Yeah, sure. This will be more specific now when I say about the training, because it was a year that I would treat it. I was treating it fully professionally, and with 2021 was a real like now that the competition was very, very high, and the loose approach for a training would never ever work. And so yeah, as I say, it's not about just jumping in a car and doing some laps and expect yourself to win a competition. It's a very thick boxing experience of what you have to do to be fully prepared for a car. First is actually what I do is to jump in and start some hot laps in a quali-like setting. So put low fuel and try to do as fast lap time as possible in a specific car or track, just to see what kind of potential is there at the start, what to work on, and it's a good reference for a start. So first I'm starting with some hot laps, just to be there with the pace. Then it's a work on different variations of the weather that can be in the track. Working on the setup in quali, working for a setup in the race, because the car is really different with amount of fuel that there is in the car. But the specifically the approach for Ferrari Esports Series finals of 2021 was really interesting, because usually right now when I compete in SRO Esports or other big competitions, there is a lot of time to prepare for one race. Like you have about maybe 2, 3, or even 4 weeks to prepare for an endurance race or a sprint race. But in the Ferrari Esports Series finals, the approach was definitely different, because we get to know the combinations of tracks and cars, which was 3 of them, just 1 week before the finals. So you basically had 1 week to prepare for 3 tracks and 3 cars. So believe me, I took basically 1 week off and was really pushing all night and all days just to be fully sure that I am truly prepared to win this competition. And it really paid off. The time I spent during this week, all the time that I spent in the sim, just to be sure that I am one step ahead of my competitors in terms of preparations, it's really something, because everyone had the eager to win this competition. You need to be just 1% better, 1% more prepared, and it will pay off. The work you put, the hours of trainings on the track will really pay off. So
no, it was awesome. I'm just thinking back to it because obviously, you know, at the front there was, you know, 3 or 4 of you fighting for this championship, and the car and track combinations were quite different. You know, I think it was like Monza and Vallelunga and Mugello as well. It was a really strange combination. So it was like you couldn't just practice a specific car track combination, right? You had to have a kind of schedule and regime to practice to be quick with all of them, which is amazing. The other part that I want to talk about though is obviously there's a great example of why you can train to have a good result. But I want to take you back to Belgium last year. You were obviously competing at a LAN event. I think it was for SRO Esports. And obviously you had a really strong race, and then just shortly before the end, I think there was a disconnect, you know. Obviously a heartbreaking moment. We've all been there, sim racers, where something goes wrong and you can't finish a race, let alone win one. How do you train to practice for when things don't go right? What's your approach there?
yeah, I was sure that it will be blank in this interview, because it was last year what could have been the biggest achievement in the year, winning the LAN finals in Spa. Something interesting in my mind and my approach is the fact that on the LAN events, when I'm racing, competing with the people on the stage, considering all the distraction you get from all the factors, people moving around, having different rig, loud engine noises on the track, nothing really distracts me. It even pushes my motivation and makes me easier to focus on the results than in the perfect conditions at home. So it's really something really interesting that I feel like I'm having this 1% more in the potential compared to being at home. But your question was how I'm preparing for this kind of situations, that unexpected moments. Well, I kind of don't, but to be honest, this connection on a LAN event was the last thing that I would be worried about. It's not something that you can ever expect on a LAN event. The disconnection or technical problem of your connection can be something to happen at home, but you're not having in my mind that it can be your rig at the LAN stage. So everything was really well until the point of the disconnection. I won the sprint race after having a pole position in quali, and the race was really there to win it. I was racing with my teammate David Tonica between P1 and P2, but then 3 minutes before the finish, I got disconnected. So first I thought, okay, the server just crashed, so they will figure out the result probably by taking it from what it was 3 minutes before the event, the finish. But I look around, I see everyone still racing. I see the screen, I hear the commentators, the race is really happening more. So I didn't take it. It was really hard to swallow. I needed to jump off the rig, went off the stage, take some fresh air, just to like hyperventilate, take as much air as possible, just to not, blow in tears and anger, because I needed plenty of minutes to have any kind of relaxation to accept it, because it was the event I was preparing basically 3 weeks in Maranello. In the Sims, I treated it as much professional and with the biggest motivation as possible, because with the fact I know that LAN events are my strong factor. Spa is the track I love, and there was a big prize money and all the biggest competitions, so I knew that this was the moment to showcase my skill. But yeah, things like that happens in motorsport and esport. It's a cruel world, but you learn from the things, and at the end it makes you just stronger. And when I showcase myself that I am able to achieve a big results. At the end, I didn't take the trophy, I didn't take the victory, but in my mind I was a winner in terms of a performance. So
no, definitely. I think that's so important, is having that ability to kind of be accepting. I think that's the big thing that you've said, right? And obviously there's been a lot of championships where things have gone your way, so it can just as easily it can go positively or negatively. It's just one of those things. Obviously we spoke about maybe there a moment that wasn't so great in your history of sim racing, but what's your best memory? What's your favorite result that people can maybe get to know that Kamil loves so much?
Great question, because really it's hard to give a very specific answer, because it's kind of many. It's really fun that I do sim racing professionally to push for the result, to push for these little moments or big moments. So for the victories, for the experience you can have from achieving the good results in competitions. For example, I love the competitions that give you a price of the experience of, for example, touching the motorsport in terms of having the experience on a car, in a car on a real track. But just to push for the little memories of standing on a podium, to holding that trophy. I cannot give you a very specific one that is the best moment of a career. But one of them is definitely the world fastest gamer overall. The whole event, 2 weeks in California, driving on the tracks that I was only dreaming about driving when I was a kid, especially Laguna Seca, but also Willow Springs, and enjoying all the stuff was really something that I could have only dreamed in my deepest dream to experience in real life. So the fact was Laguna Seca was something that when I was a little kid, as I said in the first question, when I was driving in Gran Turismo, was the track was my favorite track. Never really dreamt that I could achieve having a couple of laps on this track, and I did myself a tattoo of Laguna Seca on my chest, like the track map, because of how important it was in my life. So giving a specific answer for a question, let's say World's Fastest Gamer Finals was the moment of my glory and the best experience, in my mind, of sim racing.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, it was such a great series to follow, and obviously very unique, because no matter, what games you look at, there's obviously people who are very talented, and that talent can be across both of them, as you've kind of shown between Poject Cars or Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Competizione. If you're talented, it kind of shows in all these different games. So Kamil, obviously at this point we've spoken a lot about kind of your approach to sim racing. We've spoken about your training regimes, your mental approaches, some of your experiences, and really what you think is important to be successful. I want to move the conversation towards equipment, because equipment is one of those topics that people would argue about for hours in sim racing. So to start, I want to ask you the question, which is, does sim racing equipment actually have an impact on how fast you can be?
Back then, some years ago, I would say rather no. And the answer of, because this kind of question was is the very common question asked to professional sim racers right now and back then. So it's a good follow-up now, comparing it to years ago, because years ago I would say not really in terms of one fastest lap. It would not make you faster. It would make you just maybe a bit more comfortable with the feeling of the car and more constant, like more repetitive in terms of lap times. But now with the technology rising more and more, with having very precise, powerful force feedback, direct drives, and especially load cell pedals, I would say you would not achieve this kind of very sharp and very on the limit lap times you can have on the very top experience. We're not talking about big differences. I'm only saying that you can be on a very fast lap on your best equipment that you're prepared and you're comfortable with. You can be 1/10 or maybe 2/10 faster, but still it remains the most important factor, that with the good equipment that you're comfortable with, you will be more consistent. So in being the faster on the one lap time, one hot lap, maybe yes, maybe no, but the most important factor, especially in long races and big competitions, the consistency is the key that you will achieve on the better experience, in my opinion.
No, definitely. I'd agree. I think, yeah, I'm sure you see it yourself, and many people watching probably. You'll sometimes go into a lobby online where someone's maybe 2 attempts faster in qualifying, but then in the race they just aren't consistent, and they can be competitive. So, I want to talk about, obviously we're here with Thrustmaster. You and I are both backed by the brand, which is amazing. But can you tell me a little bit about how did you go about getting sponsored and supported by Thrustmaster? It's a question I get a lot. I'm sure you get a lot in your DMs as well. But I would love to know the story about how Kamil and Thrustmaster came together.
Yeah, our cooperation, our fantastic work together lasts already for about 4 or even 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Back then, with the Poject Cars Championship in Poject Cars 1, I was in a BAM Esports team, which is not existent anymore, but it's a great history for me, because this is where my professional route started, with the biggest achievements. And the team was sponsored by Thrustmaster. And after winning the Poject Cars World Finals, the BAM sometime later closed its work, and I was looking for a new team and being a freelancer. But with the results in a BAM team, with the Poject Cars World Championship win, Thrustmaster, let's say, found me and gave me the opportunity to work together. They were interested in this, and I was interested in cooperation as well. So it started about 4 years ago, after the major achievement of World Finals in Poject Cars. And yeah, year by year we are working together fantastically.
So Kamil, obviously something that I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you also get asked this a lot, is the people see the Thrustmaster brand, they see that we're supported by them in various championships and our wider support area. Obviously there's probably a lot that you can't discuss because of the joys of contracts and paperwork. But for someone who's maybe trying to understand what it means to be sponsored by a sim racing brand, what is it like to be supported by Thrustmaster?
It's great from the obvious fact of the support of having the products always there on top from Thrustmaster. It's always there, that I don't have to worry about. So I'm always ready with the best equipment from Thrustmaster in sim racing. But very important factor is the overall esport and contact management I have from Thrustmaster. So Thrustmaster opens and gives me more possibilities in sim racing world in terms of my visibility in social media, my image management, the competitions we are discussing together, with what to compete. So yeah, it's great to not only have the financial support, product support, but also the management support of competitions, of the approach of them, of your visibility in social media. So it really helps me to grow as a sim racer, and I help them to grow by promoting the products and the brand with the results, and spreading um, the brand in everywhere I can. So it's a great cooperation.
No, that makes sense. Something that you mentioned there that I want to dive a bit deeper in. You said that obviously part of your role with Thrustmaster is deciding which championships that you'll compete in. Obviously, as someone who's as talented as you, if you enter something, you want to win, right? So what does what do you have to decide, or what's important for you when deciding what a championship to compete in, that maybe someone watching is also trying to decide what they want to compete in? Is it the visibility, the prize money, the cars and tracks? Talk to me about what makes you decide what championships to compete in.
Great question. As also because the fact right now the competitions are often getting longer and longer in terms of how the whole series works, because usually the biggest competitions that right now I'm joining in from a couple of years are the SRO Esports competitions, which take place for about half a year or even more. So it's a series of races, sprint races that you do solo, and endurance races that you do with the team. So the factors to consider about joining or not the competitions are all that you have mentioned in asking the question. So it's every mix of everything. You're finding a sweet spot between the prize money, the visibility you will get, and the potential of bringing the good result. You're looking how competitive the field is and try to calculate your chances of big result, because sim racing is not only about having a talent and good preparations. It's not something that is 100% you need, because there is many of luck factor and the things that you not you cannot really consider in expecting the result, because the cars are different, the balance of performance of cars are different. So it's always a bit roll of a dice at the end, who will achieve a great result. So it's a mixture of everything, basically. Money, visibility, how long the competition is, how big the competition is, and then you decide what to take on in your career, because you cannot take everything. You need to focus in a year on something, because if you try to compete in every big competition right there, you will not be great enough in any of them. So you need to put your focus on something specific.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And when you talked earlier about with the Ferrari Esports finals, how you had 1 week to prepare, I can only imagine how much more difficult that would have been if you had, 3 or 4 other championships to practice for at the same time, right?
Exactly.
So, in terms of, the Thrustmaster sponsorship and ambassadorship that you do, if you had to give advice to someone watching about how to get the attention of Thrustmaster or, one of the major product manufacturers, what would your tips and advice be? I know what I would say, which is that, you need to make sure you've got something quite unique from a content perspective. You got to have a reason for people to follow you. But what advice would you give to someone who wants to get the attention of Thrustmaster?
Yeah, in this world right now, it's super important for a content creation. As I say, if you lead a interesting YouTube channel and take care of every little detail to make it professional looking, good looking, and eye-catching in terms of every detail, like to present gameplay, present a wheel, have a good thumbnail, and you combine it with good result, good visibility in your social media. My advice is to be open to talk and even be open to ask, like ambassadors or directly the brands if they are interested in kind of cooperations, because you lose nothing by asking, but you can always open the doors for yourself for a great cooperation.
No, I love that. I think that's a great approach to have. I watched a video on TikTok the other day, and it was a guy who had a Thrustmaster wheelbase. I think it was a T300 or something, and he took the steering wheel off and he put a baguette, like a baguette onto the wheelbase, and was driving dirt rally with a baguette. Obviously, it broke, but it was really interesting to watch. And for people, it's something unique, right? Because ultimately, when I look at the championships you compete in and the level you compete at, it's very difficult to break into that top level without any kind of support. And I think you need to be smart about that on your journey up, right? So moving on towards like the last couple of, questions and then things to maybe talk about today. Obviously, we've learned a lot about, younger Kamil and his passion playing Gran Turismo, now the competitive Kamil winning so many great competitions. What does the future hold for Kamil? Where can people expect to see you race? What's the future for you as a professional sim racer?
I will give some points or some thoughts, because it's something that I will not talking about specifically. But one thing is sure, that I will be there. There will be a lot of Kamil in sim racing world, definitely, because my motivation is going higher and higher every year, and the doors that sim racing is opening every month, every year are spreading really much because of the popularity grow and potential grow in terms of raising your career is very huge. So I will definitely be there with Thrustmaster, and also probably with some esports team, but I don't want and didn't take the final decision yet. So so expect some announcements in my social media very soon. But I will be there definitely in Assetto Corsa Competizione competitions. It's hard to say right now because it's January and it's not very clear what kind of competitions will be there. And following your questions, to decide which competitions to take in, taking into consideration everything. But this year will be, I hope, a big year for me. Focusing fully on sim racing as a full-time job. So yeah, big things.
Amazing. And just on that topic of learning so much about your history today, and I'm sure everyone watching will have learned a lot as well. Is there anything you would change about how you have got to the stage where you are now? Any competitions you may have taken differently? Any different approaches? Or are you happy with where you are and what the future holds?
I am very happy from where I am, and the things I am changing are is changing every year. Especially the approach of the trainings and hard working. Especially what I learned from Ferrari, being a team member of Ferrari Esports. From what I learned about how much you can how much you can earn from hard working and dedication that you put every day on the sim trainings with a team, with a great team, with the engineer. So I learned really a lot in terms not only the simple fact of being a faster driver on track, but also from a teamwork, cooperation, setup approach. Being a better person myself, like I feel that the whole year of being a Ferrari Esports Series pilot really helped me to develop myself. So basically every year I am changing something in terms of the approach. And this year I am and I will be working more consistently. I will put more time on the track to be even more sure that I can potentially bring good results.
No, amazing. And look, I mean, as I said at the top of the show, but your results so far have been nothing short of incredible, and kind of stems to my earlier point, which is that when it's, I always find when someone's very quick in a game, a specific game, it's always impressive. But when someone can go from game to game, like different titles, is even more impressive in my opinion. I think for me, that's, you know, when I look at people like James Baldwin and, you know, other people in the space, yourself included, that for me is the big difference between someone who's fast and someone who's really, really talented. So look, Kamil, thank you so much for the time today. It's been a pleasure getting to know more about you and your background. I really can appreciate how much time and insight you've given to us. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the talk. I'm really, really grateful for a great chat. Thank you very much, Josh.
Awesome.